Hey everybody, this is Larry with Leading Edge Industrial, and today we're going to go into our second of a six-part series on creating our mechanical pencils, pens, and our matching pen holder. As you can see in the picture here below, we've already, our last video, our first video was done doing the lower section of the pen and the upper section, the hourglass section of the pen and pencil bodies. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create the base and the cover for our pen holder, which also doubles as, you know, as you can see here, you've got your pens held in two holes here, and then there's a slot in the middle for putting business cards. It makes a very nice desk set. So let's go ahead and dive right in and jump to our project, our bare project, and let's hit R for rectangle, select the X and white plane, and start off in the origin. Hit D for dimension, and we want this dimension here to be 6.5 inches, and this dimension here to be 2 inches. And now let's double click so we can get our geometry in the middle of our screen here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to offset this inside by 130 thousandths, and for this part here I actually want to do rather than do an offset entity, I actually want to create geometry here, because when we go in to add our fillets, it'll be a little bit easier to do the fillet that way versus doing an offset. So go ahead and let's hit L for line, and we're going to create some construction geometry here. Let's find our midpoints of our vertical and our horizontal lines. Hit escape, select both those lines we just created, hit by control select, hit X to turn them into construction geometry. Then I've created a couple shortcuts, of course, and we're going to hit S for the sketch toolbox, select the center point rectangle, and we want to join that here. We're going to do 2 of these. And from this point we're going to go ahead and dimension, hit D for dimension. Let's move these dimensions up here so it's a little less cluttered, and we're going to dimension this one here to 6.24 inches. This one to 1.74 inches. This one here we're going to make 6.125. Nope, I'm sorry. It should be 6 inches. And then, why didn't that? Our line's hidden here. All right, let's scroll that down. Let's make that smaller than 6.125. Did that? Why is that getting rid of our geometry here? Let's do Control Z. See what happened. Not exactly sure what happened there, but let's go ahead and now that we're back here to 6.12, make that 6. It did it again. All right, let's handle the dimension for the width here. It is 1.5 there. Maybe try it. There we go. So for whatever reason, it was collapsing that rectangle in on itself. So sometimes you just have to work around with what the limitations of the CAD are. Now, the next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and put it on the front again. So we've got a direct plane, and we want to put a slot in here. So once again, hit the S for the sketch toolbar, and I have a center point slot that I like to use. We'll click on this line so it creates a relationship here. Bring it out arbitrarily somewhere, you know, it doesn't go past the inner line there. Bring it in. Now that we've got 2 of them, let's go hit D for dimension. We want this to be radius of 0.25, and we want the length to be 5 3/8. We'll select these circles, and then next grab the inner lines so that they're all both the same size. And now we're going to go to our symmetrical constraint. And our symmetrical constraint, we can hit the circles and then our sketch line, and now everything's symmetrical there. It looks like we have to do a symmetrical relation here. There we go. Now everything's locked in place, and we've got our sketch all set. So from here, let's go ahead and hit Stop Sketch. Becomes a little less confusing at this point. And our total work thickness is going to be 1/2 inch. Okay, so let's hit E for extrude, and we're going to select all of our entities here, and we're going to say minus 0.5. It'll give us our total. Let's make sure our sketch is on, and now we want to do an extrusion of, so that we have this little boss here there, but what we're going to do is do a negative extrusion. So we're going to hit extrusion, hit this area here, both inner slots, and say minus 0.125. There's a reason why we'll do this, and you'll see when we create the top why we do it. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to select our slots. Oh, hit E for extrude. That slot, let's make them minus 0.3. There we go. And now it's time to come in and add some fillets and really dress this up. At this point, we're done creating our geometry off of that sketch, so we can turn the sketch off. Hit F for fillet, and we're going to start off with our corners. Make that 1/4 inch. Fillet again. Select the bottom. Again, 0.25. Gives us a nice fillet there around the edge. Let's do a fillet on the inside of this guy here. Sometimes they're a little fun to select. I'm going to make that an 1/8 inch fillet. Once again, double click so we can be in the middle here. And now we're going to do one final fillet on the outside. And since this is in between that 1/8 inch and 1/4 on the outside, let's make that 1/88, which is 3/16. And I think that ought to look good. There we go. So that's our base here so far. We had actually add a little fillet in here. So let's go ahead and do fillet one more time. And we're going to make this 0.13, actually 125. Oh. Here, select these edges first, and then we'll make it 0.125. There you go. It gives it a nice looking fillet here. And that's to hold our pens in there. All right, so now the next part is actually using much of this geometry here to create the top. Okay, so we're going to turn our sketch back on. Let's bring down our sketch palette here. Turn our sketch back on because we do have to borrow some of this geometry here. We're going to hit E for extrude. We're going to select all the geometry like we did before. And we're going to say extrude in 2 sides. The first side we're going to say 0.4. That'll come up. The second side, say 0.1. So as you can see, we're left here with a little groove in the middle, and that little groove is a little space that's done in project design so that you don't have 2 edges coming flat together. Any misalignment would definitely show up, as well as it could create a sharp edge there, which you could run your fingers across and score your fingers or scratch your fingers. So we tend to do this in design is give about 20 thousandths gap in here, 10 to 20 thousandths gap. So what we've done is used 25 thousandths. Let's go ahead and bring our model in here, and let's add a fillet to the outside. We can turn this sketch off because we're done with this. Do fillet. We're going to select all 4 corners like we did before on the outside and make those 0.25. Hit enter. Hit fillet again. Select the top, 0.25. Again, you could do all of these together. You could do the fillets with the corners and the top all together. I like to keep them separate just in case we want to come in and change some of the geometry. I may want to come in here later and change the top. I like the way that the corners look, but I might want to come in and say, let's make that 0.3 inches there, because I might like the way that round over holds on the top there a little bit better. For now, let's go ahead and change that back. And then they're 2 separate entities. I don't have to change everything all together. Once again, let's go ahead and create a sketch. We're going to select the top of that, the top. Let's grab some, hit L for line, and we're going to snap some center points and some midpoints here. All right, so now we're going to go in and we're going to create a sketch on the top plane. Hit L for line, select our midpoints horizontally. Or vertically, midpoint horizontally, do some sort of a horizontal line here, somewhere around the 2/3 mark. Let's select those lines that we just created and turn them into construction geometry by hitting X. Now we're going to hit S. Actually, let's do a dimension key, D for dimension, and we're going to come off of this point here, and let's make that 1 point. I think I have 1.375, 1 3/8 from the edge there. And let's give it a horizontal constraint. There, now everything's in black. S for shortcut, let's use our center point slot set. Bring that out, set a slot in there. C for circle, let's do a circle on each side. Not sure where that came from, but we'll delete that anyways. Okay, so let's hit D for dimension. Actually, let's do D for dimension. We'll come off the center here. It seems to work better off of there. We'll do make that 0.3 or 0.15. Now we're going to select all of our arcs and circles, or at least one of our arcs here on the slot and our 2 circles. And we're going to make that equal. And let's hit our dimension tool again. Let's dimension from the circle to circle center point. We want that to be 5 1/4. .4. There we go. Let's drag that circle out a little bit more. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we're going to apply our symmetrical constraints here. First, let's go ahead and grab this guy here and let's make it coincident on the center point. Then grab our symmetrical constraint, hit 1 circle, 2 circle, and our center line. Now everything's constrained. Let's do stop sketch. Then we're going to turn off the lower portion of our body, body 1. And we're going to come in here and let's do a coring of the, or a shell of the upper part. Hit that. Let's say select this face here, and we want that to be 1/8 of an inch. Let's say OK. Now we can go back up to our sketch. We can hit E for extrude, hit all of our geometry from our last sketch, and do negative. Anything over -0.1 is, or 1/8 of an inch, 0.125 is going to work. Hit enter, and now we're golden there. So we turn our body, our lower body on, and there you go. That's our pen holder. Got a slot here for our business cards and 2 holes for our pens. So that concludes our lesson today, or on this video here. If you like what you see here, please click like and subscribe. Our next video will go over the cam portion of both the pencil or the pen and pencil bodies, the upper and lower bodies, and we'll do that on the lathe functions. And then on the pen holder, we'll do that on the mill